And I have to get past things I was raised with, which is when you get invited out for something meal related, which, let's be honest, is everything. Hey there, everybody. I hope everyone's getting out there and enjoying at least some form of the sun. It's been a really nice week, and I've been out at least twice now, trying to get my steps in, enjoying the outside as opposed to a treadmill, which has been really nice. And it just makes it simple. My kids can go out and play while I get that done. So it works out and benefits everybody at the same time. So challenges. I'm in my third week of prep, and you know, the meal planning is pretty easy once you get it figured out. The working out, pretty easy once you get it figured out. The hardest part is the mind stuff. And what I mean by that is the, family events and restaurants and eating out and all that stuff. I've come to appreciate why a lot of people I've read watching and following their social media accounts say that they just don't engage with them. Once they get into prep, they don't go out, they just stay home and do their own thing. And while I can appreciate that perspective of things, because you don't want to fall into the stress of being tempted by foods and plans outside of what you have set for yourself, the flip side of that is challenging yourself. I mean, obviously know your strengths, know your limits, know your discipline, know your boundary lines and where you should and shouldn't say yes. But I gotta say, so far, that has been my biggest challenge. Last week, for example, I got invited out and I enjoyed every moment of it, but it was a struggle because I got invited out to a football game where there is popcorn and all those kinds of things. And for me personally, I find popcorn is the first thing that I take out of my diet plan when I enter in something as strict or as challenging as prep, only because with how I tend to enjoy it, as I have figured out how to closely mimic movie popcorn, I find it very difficult to track and measure accurately enough to feel confident enough to be able to include it in my day-to-day meal plan with prep and make sure I hit all my macros properly. For pre-prep, it was fine. I left it. Doesn't have to be perfect in that point. But when it comes to prep itself, everything matters. It is 100% a numbers game. And therefore, I will take out the popcorn. So going to a place that is selling the popcorn, which is something I greatly enjoy, definitely made things challenging to ignore it. I mean, I was successful and I ignored it. But that is just one example that is coming up in the next little while. Now, with that being said, if I know I'm going out and I can plan for it, rule of thumb is you can eat anything you want during prep. Now, the cleaner you eat, the better. And the more you'll be able to eat across a day. Because, let's be honest, 2,000 calories is really easy to accomplish if you're not eating whole foods. Which means you can have one meal while out and blow your calories in one go. Which means you have nothing left for the rest of the day. However, with that being said, there's a good chance you've blown out your macros entirely. So, there's that. But if I know I'm going out, it allows me to do some research into the restaurant I'm going to, look into their menu, see if there's nutritional facts and data I can use to plan ahead. Pick something that I will enjoy and allow it to fit. Hubby and I, for example, went on a date night this last weekend. We went out to Milestones and then we went dancing, which is something we both really enjoy doing. And to make things as simple for me and as anxiety-free as possible under the circumstances, him and I looked up the menu, and it was something we did together. We figured out how to make it fit. So while it was an extremely small portion, I still allowed myself a third of a steak and a very small, it was a half portion of the garlic mashed potatoes that I enjoy. So while it doesn't seem like much, it was something I was able to enjoy. And then because I enjoy sherbet as well, as it's honestly, yes, there's a good amount of sugar in it, but there's really nothing in it other than that but carbs. So I have a good amount of carbs I can use and work with in a day. And when I'm after something sweet, that's what I allow for. And I make room for that. So because of that, hubby was able to find an ice cream shop not too far from where we were that was serving the same brand of sherbet that I enjoy, keeping the calories the same and the macros the same. And at this point, macros are a little bit more important than calories. However, you still want to keep everything low. So, we are able to plan for that, and it made it for a very enjoyable evening. However, there are going to be some instances, like yesterday, when I went out to celebrate my brother's birthday. However, we went to a restaurant where we couldn't find any nutritional data on the restaurant itself. We come to find out later that there was a QR code on the menu, and they gave some nutritional information on a few select items, but not all of it. I also have a gluten allergy, and I'm allergic to cashews, so I have to be careful with what I do. Gluten, I can allow trace contaminants, and it won't necessarily have any major impacts. But during prep especially, I really don't like the way gluten makes me feel and the consequences of it, so I avoid it as much as possible. Whereas cashews, that was major allergic reaction, so that's not happening. But because I wasn't able to account for the nutritional information and therefore not able to plan for it, I ended up going to a restaurant with my kids and my husband and enjoying the environment as much as I can and enjoying the company and celebrating with him. However, I chose not to eat anything. I also struggle with the water here as it's groundwater, and I was raised on mountain water. So I have a really hard time, and it's not so much about flavor as my body just doesn't like it. If I actually drink too much of it that's unfiltered, or at the very least flavored, it actually makes me sick. My body doesn't absorb it very well. Why, I have no idea. But it's been that way since I moved here almost 8 years ago, going from BC to Calgary. So I struggle with the water. Now, if I ever find a restaurant that serves a different kind of water, like the one restaurant I came across in Edmonton, I will drink water like it's going out of style because I get a chance to enjoy something I grew up with. So instead of drinking water at the restaurant, I ended up drinking diet soda because it's something that has absolutely pretty much nothing in it, and it's not quite water, but it's something that I can drink. So I ended up doing that the whole time. And, it wasn't bad, as there wasn't a whole lot of food temptations I was interested in. There was a brief moment where I wanted a French fry, but that's about it. So, my biggest challenge right now is family events, and we're not even done yet. Over the next little while, I have family coming into town, and then I have another birthday to celebrate, my nephew's birthday, which is going to require more food things. And then there's Mother's Day, again, more food things. And that is honestly my biggest challenge right now, and trying to plan accordingly to make everything fit, while also trying to get through what other people may or may not think. Some people are very supportive of what I do and they understand, they don't pressure me about it, while others, they don't really fully understand. And I have to get past things I was raised with, which is when you get invited out for something meal related, which, let's be honest, is everything. Everything is so food focused in the human society environment, it's crazy. You celebrate something, you eat something. You mourn something, you eat something. Discipline is food. Rewards is food. Everything is food. So when you get offered something or given something or invited to try something for one reason or another, you are expected at the very minimum to try it. And unfortunately, I am now in a place where if I don't like something, I don't eat it. I won't finish my plate, which is also something I was raised with. I just won't do it. And I have raised my children to do the same thing because I don't want them to force themselves to eat something they don't like. That just creates eating disorders and a lot of other trauma and issues that go with it. So this is becoming more and more of a head game. Now, walking away, I can be happy about yesterday and say that I was able to, be disciplined and not join in and move my diet around so I could get in the macros I needed because I spent 6 hours driving, which was unexpected yesterday. So I had to make my food work for that to allow myself to get it all in, which is both the challenge during prep and out. So honestly, at this point, my biggest challenge right now, it's not about the workout or the meal plan or the macros or anything else. It's the headspace, the family obligations and the events. And while sure, I could just withstand and not go to any of these things, but that's not who I am. That's not who I will ever be. And I will just make things work the best I can for me and learn to deal with everything else as it comes. Thankfully, I have a very supportive team, and that will help me along the way. Either way, I will keep you updated on how things go when we enter in week 4. Cheers.